All right, there's no lengthy intro today. Let's just go to the hangar. And here we are out at the hangar. Let's get these doors open, pull this bird out, and we are going to go check out 3 different bodies of water. First one is going to be the Sturgeon Bay Canal. It is a man-made canal that was used as a shipping channel for logging when Door County was a logging community. Then we're going to go check out Clark Lake and then Kangaroo Lake. Each body of water is going to get progressively rougher, and we're going to talk about it. Look at that. Got it started on the first try. Now, what you should be listening to right about now is the ATIS, but I am still struggling to get the audio functioning in this GoPro. I don't know if it's because of the adapters that I'm using or if it's because the audio panel is the original audio panel from 1984, but I'm working on it. I think I've finally gotten the appropriate adapters. I've ran a few test runs with the GoPro, so hopefully, the audio is all figured out. And on the next video, you'll actually be able to hear what's going on inside the airplane. But let's get this airplane over to the runways so that we can take off and get this bird wet. Now, I do just want to clarify before we get this bird off of the ground, the person to the right is the pilot in command. The person sitting in the right seat currently is the pilot in command of this aircraft. All right, now let's talk about a run-up. How do we do a run-up in a Lake 200? Well, it's pretty much the same way that you do a run-up in any other fuel-injected Lycoming engine with a constant speed prop. You're going to set the prop full forward, set the mixture full rich, pump on or off, whichever you prefer. Set the RPM up to 1800, and then we are going to cycle the prop. What we're just looking for is that the prop's going to come down to about 1500 and then come back up. We're making sure that the prop doesn't get stuck. We're making sure that oil is getting out to the hub and adjusting the pitch of that blade. Then we just check our magnetos, just like you do in your Cessna 172. Left, drop a 50. Back to both, rise a 50. Right, drop a 50. Back to both, rise a 50. And run up is complete. They're that simple. Don't need to make them any more complicated than that. All right, now with our run up all complete, let's head to the runway. Fuel pumps on, flaps are down, trim is set in the green. Run through our takeoff checklist right there on the ceiling. Make sure the approach is clear. You know, we're at an uncontrolled airport, so there's a lot of people here. Sometimes there's some people here that don't talk on the radio, so you really got to make sure. Make sure it's clear before you take the runway. Turn all your lights on. Make sure you look like a dang old Christmas tree so that nobody lands on top of you in case you did miss somebody. And pull the power back so that you don't hit any of the seagulls. And yeah, we are aborting this takeoff. So this is how you abort a takeoff in a Lake 200 if your intention is to just use the perpendicular runway. That's our plan anyway, given that as we were rolling down, we realized the windsock agrees more with the short runway. But the camera's panning around looking for all these seagulls that I was trying to not hit. In the spring, this runway gets absolutely covered in birds. See, look, there goes one. All right, here we are lined up with the perpendicular runway, the one that lines up more with the wind. And well, now that we just ran down it, has no seagulls. So now let's take off and get this bird wet. And here we are coming up on the Sturgeon Bay Canal. So run through our quick little flow, make sure our prop is forward, mixture's forward, and drop those flaps. Keep the gear up. Obviously, we don't need gear on the water. Do you know what happens if you try and land with the gear down on water, even in a seaplane? You end up upside down. So make sure, check your gear. Even look outside. Even if your light inside is showing that everything is good to go, look outside. You know the best gear indicator? Your gear. If they're down, guess what? They're down. This is a really easy airplane to see if the gear are down. It's a mid-wing aircraft, and the gear are right there. So you can see right about now, the water's got a little bit of ripple to it. This actually isn't too bad. I probably could have actually landed completely, sunken the airplane in to a displacement float or a displacement taxi. But I decided just for a little splash and go because we wanted to go check out Clark Lake and Kangaroo Lake as well. And here we are coming up on the lakeside of the Door County Peninsula, and there are hundreds of shipwrecks around Door County, and here's one of them right here. I keep meaning to land here and go snorkeling to get some better pictures of it. Let me know if y'all want to see some pictures from underwater from some of these shipwrecks. Let's get on to Kangaroo Lake. Or are we going to Clark Lake first? I guess you'll have to wait and find out. Now, if you look on the shoreline, it is pretty wavy, right? This aircraft does pretty well in waves up to about 6 to 8 inches. Swells, it doesn't do well at all. It absolutely hates swells, especially ones that are this tight together. If you read through the pilot's operating handbook for the Lake 200 or even just any Lake series aircraft, it actually tells you to land on top of the swells and kind of ride with them as opposed to landing into the swells. And I think that's how most seaplanes tell you how to land on swells. But as you can see, these ones are big, they're tight together, and the waves that are breaking on the shore are way too big for this airplane. Anything over 8 or 9 inches of waves is just too much. Technically, this thing can take 1.5 foot waves, but that's in the event of like, oh my God, my engine died while crossing Lake Michigan. And here we are on our final approach into Clark Lake. Clark Lake is an absolutely wonderful, tiny little lake about halfway up the Door County Peninsula. There's a lot of private property, private houses on Clark Lake, but it is open to the public. Very often you'll see people out here fishing. I would love to have a house on Clark Lake, but it's a little out of my price range. I know if I sold my airplane, I could probably afford a house on Clark Lake, but then I wouldn't really want a house on Clark Lake because I wouldn't have a seaplane. But with Clark Lake being such a short lake and there being weeds at the edges, especially that far edge, I do my best for a short field attempt in Clark Lake, requiring me to cut the power, kind of dive down at the appropriate airspeeds. And really what ended up happening here is I didn't get my airspeed under control in time and touched down a little harder at a little too high of a nose attitude and skipped off the water a couple times. But we add some power, get the airplane going around, get a nice climb rate in, and bring it back to 25 squared. And let's go check out Kangaroo Lake. And here we are approaching Kangaroo Lake. Kangaroo Lake is, well, called Kangaroo Lake because it's kind of shaped like a kangaroo, to be honest. Or at least maybe it used to be, because it doesn't really look like a kangaroo to me. But as we overfly it, maybe you can tell me if it actually looks like a kangaroo. But Kangaroo Lake, it's long, it's narrow. It usually isn't pretty wavy. It usually is pretty calm. And as you can see right here along the shore of Lake Michigan, it's pretty wavy out here. You can kind of tell that the waves are lining up with Kangaroo Lake. And as we get closer to Kangaroo Lake, you'll start to see those wind lines of the water getting all frothed up from the wind whipping across the top of the lake. And you'll eventually see that there is anywhere from 1 to 3 foot waves in Kangaroo Lake right now. It is way too rough to even attempt a landing. If you remember from the start of this video, I was saying that 18-inch waves is pretty much the limit, and you'd really only be doing that in the event of an emergency, like my engine died over Lake Michigan and I need to land. But this is way too rough for this aircraft. You might be able to accomplish it. You might be able to do it in a Beaver. You might be able to do it in a 182. You might even be able to do it in a Lake 200. But here's the thing. I really like my airplane. I like that there's no dents in it. I like that, all the parts are still attached in the places and where they're supposed to be attached. So I try to keep it out of, waves like this. So there you have it. We went to 3 different bodies of water. First, the Sturgeon Bay Canal. It was perfect. It was pristine. Nice little ripply waves so we could keep our visual reference. We knew how high we were. We kept our depth perception the entire time. The second body of water, Clark Lake, it was a little rough, right? Wasn't too great. Definitely had some bumps on the way down. You could even see my wife look over at me as soon as we landed going, "What was that? That was a pretty terrible landing. What are you doing?" But now here at Kangaroo Lake, that was way too much, and there was no business ever letting this airplane touch down on that water, which is why we went around, and now we're heading back to the Sturgeon Bay Airport. So thanks for watching. Let me know if you've got any other questions, and make sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you get notified every time we put out a Lake 200 video, a mock check ride, or just any other fun stuff that we got going on.